Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amazon Monthly Insights. This episode, we're covering September 2020. There have been a lot of updates, a lot of changes on the Amazon platform. With me, we have Kyle Olson, our Director of Strategy, on the call. Kyle, let's dive right into it and start with the topic that's on everyone's mind, Q4. There were a lot of updates in September. Running us into Q4. Where do you want to begin?
Yeah, I think the big one really is Prime Day. So that's officially been announced for I think about a week at this point. Really kicks off the first half of the month in Q4. Set to run next week, October 13th and 14th. And really this year, the nuance is it just being part of Q4 and really how that's going to shake out as it bleeds into Turkey 5.
Awesome. What else in terms of kind of Q4 specific updates?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pieces that tie into kind of that heyday of Prime Day and potential lingering effects into Turkey 5. But there's been quite a bit of overhaul on Amazon's side from an operations perspective. I think they publicly announced in September that they plan to hire 100,000 workers in US and Canada, really to help with the peak season. And I think, we talked about last month, a lot of vendors and sellers having issues with kind of inbound, outbound delays across the board. We're seeing that continue. And I think that announcement of added resources is really starting to come live now. I don't know exactly across that scope of 100,000 workers where that stands as of today. But in addition to that, there's kind of a benchmark of 100 new facilities. Sort of a combination of fulfillment centers, delivery stations, sortation centers, kind of their full sort of suite of facilities in that sense, also coming on live kind of throughout the rest of the year. So I think we'll be starting to come through a lot of those issues. We still are seeing them sporadically like we were last month, but it'll be interesting to see as we head through Prime Day, kind of how that catches up relative to kind of the sell out of Prime Day to immediately sell back in for Turkey 5 stock up. So there's a bit of a weird kind of changing cycle of inventory there that I think some of these operational updates that they pushed for this Q4 will have a direct impact on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So Amazon's hiring a lot of people to support Q4 peak. No surprise there. How does this compare in terms of Amazon's growth to previous years?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty big increase to their efforts historically in a smaller period of time. They've, over the past few years, always hired seasonally, obviously, and have continued to increase their footprint of actual facilities. But I think with the shift in e-commerce due to COVID, and again, just the proximity of Prime Day to kind of peak Q4 this year, there's a lot more capacity that they, quite frankly, need that they didn't have in a shorter period of time. So I think it's just more faster this year relative to prior years. And again, seems to have been a bit of a scramble to catch up to that rising tide, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So I see in the notes here that Amazon Logistics planned 2020 growth exceeds the previous 3 years combined. Again, I guess no surprise due to COVID, but that's still pretty dramatic. We also talk about, I know you touched on this, but maybe to get into a little bit more detail, backlogs continue at FCs, missed pickups, delayed drop-offs, delayed check-ins. This is impacting 1P and 3P brands. Any other thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think that continues to ebb and flow a bit on a location by location basis. We've also seen, this part's not too surprising, but a scale back of Amazon ordering certain products, which I think is an offset of them just being backlogged. So, we've seen a lot of 1P suppliers that, aren't participating in marquee deals, or maybe they're off season, just getting lower than expected purchase orders because they're trying to save some of that capacity for everything else that's kind of backlogged and trying to flow through. So there's that. And just to touch on that logistics piece really quick, I think in addition to their kind of internal capacity, that's a new piece this year as well, which is just an augmentation of their control over the actual shipping process. So kind of getting from their locations to end customers, trying to own more of that or have capability to do more of that in-house. We've seen a lot of their developments between like their relationship with FedEx, ongoing issues with USPS, They're looking to just have more of a hand in that process to the end customer from a delivery perspective. Again, with all of the other piece we talked about, just with this year kind of building off of that.
This is a good place to take a quick break. This episode has been brought to you by Orca Pacific.
Hey there, I'm David Zimmerman with the Orca Pacific Business Development Team. I hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to let you know this episode is sponsored by Orca Pacific, a full-service agency exclusively focused on Amazon with capabilities for everything a brand needs to succeed on the platform. From advertising strategy, content development and SEO, to merchandising and marketing. If it relates to driving and converting demand on the platform, our dedicated teams are leaders in this space. Our robust suite of services includes expertise on the back end as well, from operational support, demand forecasting and planning, to the right fulfillment options, and higher level strategies like long-term planning, channel management, and access to beta programs. Anything and everything that has to do with accelerating your brand on Amazon. To learn more, visit our website at www.orcapac.com. That's ORCAPAC.com, and a business development manager will get you up to speed on how we can accelerate your Amazon business. Now, back to the show.
All right, Kyle, we are back. Let's jump into another really important part of Amazon. Front end, I know there's a lot here from content, advertising perspective. There's been a lot of updates. I know you have quite a few. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, I think we just kind of jump around a bit here. One big update that we saw this month was just a continuation of Amazon's brand store development. So they formally launched a option to sort of version track brand stores. Historically, it was pretty much real time. You'd have one brand store, you'd build it, you'd publish it, and it'd go live in a matter of hours. And there's really no way to do it outside of that. So it made kind of managing just seasonal changes, A/B testing, new product launches that have very specific kind of start times. All of that was basically impossible to properly manage. So this is a huge step in the right direction where you could basically have two versions in tandem, developed and approved in advance, and then have a date and time that it basically switches and goes live. I think this is going to be a big value add, like I said, really with product launches, redesigns, new branding initiatives, things like that. And really just continues Amazon's effort to really make a more kind of branding focused experiential experience for both just brands and customers.
Awesome. That's great. What else on the front end?
Yeah, I think there's also some additional A/B testing options that are pushing out there more so as well. They've had A+ content A/B testing for a while now in a beta. That beta continues to scale out. So we're seeing more of our clients have that option come live. And it extends beyond just beyond just A+ at this point onto other areas of content like titles. So we're seeing a lot of additional kind of options there where Amazon's on one side really double down on the type of content, specific messaging that you could say on site, formatting titles in a very certain way, being very selective to words that you can or can't say within A+. But on the flip side of that kind of restrictedness, giving brands more tools to really play around and find content in a variety of ways that performs better or worse relative to kind of how customers interact with that.
Yeah, that's super interesting. As they're getting more restrictive, they're also allowing for more, not really flexibility, but I guess creativity and management with data. That's awesome. I see here something about catalog management. What's the change or maybe the issue here that we've been seeing?
Yeah, it's an interesting piece along with what we just said, where they're being very restrictive on one hand, they're trying to let you be creative and test on another hand. I think this is an issue we've run into for quite a few brands over the past couple of weeks where user access, specifically in Vendor Central, to just make content changes has gone away. So the catalog tool, the A+ builder, has kind of just disappeared for users that are set up as full admin. And that's at our level and at the client level, which is really bizarre. And we're slowly starting to get that back just by way of working with Amazon support, vendor management, things like that. But it's just an interesting dynamic with their push to be really prescriptive and kind of controlling of content, but then not allowing input from certain brands for some reason to actually pull those levers themselves. So we haven't really determined what's prompted this yet. My assumption is it's part of this changing rollout of how they're giving access to tools to do a lot of this content ownership, where they're just rolling out new versions of catalog management. Again, things like the A/B testing and new platforms on top of what's been in Vendor Central. And my guess is it just kind of got disconnected in some way as they make a lot of those back-end updates. So there'll probably be more to come there as we just go further there. But just a weird nuance that we saw, which caused quite a few headaches, obviously, as we're going to a peak time of Q4 and trying to make sure, listings are optimized.
Yeah, sure. So it sounds like that's really a technical error. It was not intentional, but they just broke something as they're kind of messing with all these different content platforms simultaneously. Okay, makes sense. Good to know. What else? Amazon luxury stores. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so Amazon announced kind of a new luxury store concept, I believe with one single brand at this point. As it stands today, it's a invite-only storefront experience for customers, basically to better browse and shop for luxury brands on the platform. I think historically, we've always seen a reluctance from kind of higher end brands to sell on Amazon for a variety of reasons. One of which is, channel management and kind of pricing concerns, and one of which is just the experience that, a customer can have with that brand from a kind of content perspective and engagement perspective. And I think this is a way where they're trying to build incremental kind of experience options for the customer in a way that better sells or kind of puts forth the value that comes with a higher tier kind of marquee brand on the site. So there's a couple specific avenues in there, like trying on products, kind of clothing overlay, using different kind of machine learning and AI, kind of doing that with different body types and skin tones, as well as just better representation or options when it comes to really just content and curation on the platform.
Yeah. I had I got an invite to that. Probably says something about spending too much on the platform, but it is interesting. It's a very kind of simple site right now, but it does launch as kind of a unique one-off experience. And then I think there's a couple different kind of higher end luxury fashion and accessory brands there. Bought something to test it. Ships the same way any other kind of merchant fulfilled seller marketplace seller product would ship. So that experience was the same as what you would expect otherwise, but the front end, basically it's a different skin that they're kind of laying over the otherwise same experience. But interesting, maybe window into more things to come there, and an interesting test. Totally. Do we want to move on to the advertising side of things? I know there's a couple updates there.
Yeah, I think DSP is probably one of the fastest growing advertising avenues within Amazon's platform. Over the past couple of months, we've seen quite a few updates rolled out into their DSP portal. Things like additional targeting placements on things such as Fire TV, building out additional functionality within their ads, like being responsive and inclusion of brand logos and headlines, rolling out additional KPIs and reporting options in other areas that they didn't previously track or present metrics to, as well as just building out additional targeting and audience opportunities within different campaigns. A lot of these individually, I think, are relatively small, but they kind of paint the broader picture where, they're pushing out a lot of updates in a short period of time and continuing to just build off of both DSP and kind of their legacy AMS side of the fence, given the amount of growth that they're seeing in the advertising space.
Awesome. Any other kind of front end updates in terms of either advertising content, anything else we should be aware of?
No, I think we're seeing a lot of, again, kind of change there on a relatively small scale in terms of specific nuances. But in total, just a lot of attention and building on the ad side and on the content side. I think, like we talked about before, they're rolling out, little changes to programs or functions, and sometimes that breaks other avenues. But I think that trend's going to continue really through the year into next year as they try to make more tools available for brands to do a lot of this themselves, but also give tools to really empower brands to grow their business on the platform through advertising, through content. That also makes a better benefit for the end customer. Having a customer see better content, having a customer see ads that are more relevant to them ultimately adds a better experience both for them and for Amazon as well as for the brands.
Sure. Great. So last thing I have on here is the Climate Pledge, program. What are we calling this? It just got launched. I don't know how much of an impact it has on brands, but what should they be aware of?
Yeah, I think it's a tie into kind of Amazon's bigger initiative to be carbon neutral, I believe by 2040. There's a couple avenues that they're exploring that as an organization. Obviously, a big piece of that is their retail business. So this kind of climate pledge friendly initiative is a way to build off of their packaging certifications in a way that goes directly towards that goal of net zero carbon. And I think most people are probably familiar with, FFP, SIOC, prep-free packaging, ways that they've incentivized vendors in the past to build product a certain way where it's efficiently flowing through their whole fulfillment cycle. This is just a layer on top of that, at least for the time being, where they're trying to incentivize brands to develop packaging that really minimizes wasted space, wasted or excessive air, excessive kind of water, really just trying to minimize the footprint to have lighter, smaller packaging, because that ultimately adds efficiency in both the cost of actually fulfilling those products, but also helps the planet by way of reducing emissions. And there's a couple ways of how that's being incentivized now. One, I think mainly is just merchandising on site. If you get an official Compact by Design certification, which means you meet specific thresholds at a category level based on this climate pledge that Amazon's rolled out, you get special tagging and special landing page placements. I don't believe there's much beyond that at this point in time, but I think it's pretty likely that they'll start to push that much more heavily kind of in the months and years to come, much like they did with SIOC and FFP. Whether that comes to a point of broader exposure on site or rolling into negotiations with a vendor, I think a lot of that's to be seen. But I think it's a piece that ties in pretty broadly to their kind of bigger goal and vision. So I think it'll become more transparent and forthright, I think, on their part moving forward as the program just gets more developed over time, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. So it goes beyond packaging now, I guess, where it's Energy Star, it's Fair Trade. There's something like 20 different certifications. Most brands probably either already have these or they don't. So I guess if you have them, there's no downside to getting that kind of additional tag or label and maybe a bit of additional merchandising that goes along with one of these certifications. So awesome. Yep. Okay, Kyle, I think this was great. I will talk to you again next month and we'll do this again.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, John.